Greetings and thank you for joining us. Barely days after entering Downing Street, Britain's new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, is already facing pressure from one of the United Kingdom's most important international partners. United States President Donald Trump has issued a blunt warning that illegal migration is damaging Britain and cannot be avoided by the new government.
Well, he did say one very good thing. He said he's going to open up North Sea oil. If he does that, you're going to be a wealthy country, if he does it reasonably. I was telling Prime Minister Starmer, open up the North Sea. Open it up. You'll be okay. Open it up. They have two problems. They have a huge immigration problem, people coming from all over the world and just camping out in your country. And we've taken a very tough stand. In fact, for 14 months, nobody has come into our country. Zero, which is almost hard to believe, but that's what the report says. Our borders become very strong and your border is very weak. He's got that problem. And he's got energy problem. He's got windmills all over the place. And anytime you see windmills, you see a failing country. And they're made in China, not used by China, but they're made in China. And you have a thing called the North Sea. And you buy a lot of your energy, as you know, from the North Sea. You buy it from Norway. And Norway gets it from the North Sea. They get their oil from the North Sea. And Norway's got trillions of dollars in the bank, trillions. It sells its oil from the North Sea. And Scotland has a better part of the North Sea. And you have 500, 600, 700 years. You have areas of the North Sea that haven't even been explored yet. You have one of the most valuable oil finds anywhere in the world. And if the United Kingdom would use it, they'd be a wealthy country again. And I tell you what, I could not get Starmer to use it. It was incredible. Every oil company that I meet, and these are all big giants, every person that I know in the oil business said, please, could you open up the North Sea? Could you get them to open it? They're dying to do it. And if you open up the North Sea to the oil companies, Scotland, Ireland, the UK as a whole, but it's right in Aberdeen, Scotland. It's right in Aberdeen. And that would be one of the most vibrant. You know, it used to be called the oil capital of Europe. Aberdeen was the capital of Europe. And now it's, they don't drill oil. And nobody can understand why. You have it's among the finest oil, it's the best oil anywhere on the planet. And it's unbelievable plenty. You don't have to pay Norway triple what it costs them to take out. You have your own oil and gas. If you use the North Sea, the UK will be a really rich country. I cannot get the point across. The new gentleman, when I spoke to him, he said he's going to open up the North Sea. Let's see if that happens.
The intervention places migration at the center of Burnham's opening weeks in office and raises a larger question. Will Britain's new leader confront the politically explosive issue differently from his predecessor? Speaking during an interview with GB News, Trump argued that Burnham would eventually be forced to address illegal migrations, regardless of whether he made it an immediate focus of his government.
Huge immigration problem, people coming from all over the world and just camping out in your country. And we've taken a very tough stand. In fact, for 14 months, nobody has come into our country. Zero, which is almost hard to believe, but that's what the report says. Our borders become very strong and your border is very weak. He's got that problem.
He claimed that the issue was killing the United Kingdom and criticized former Prime Minister Keir Starmer's handling of borders control. Trump also described illegal migration into Europe as an invasion language that is likely to deepen an already polarized debate over asylum, border security, and betrays international obligations. Reports and official UK government record confirmed that Burnham became Prime Minister on July 20, 2026, following Starmer's departure. Trump's intervention came as fresh migrants crossing placed additional pressure on the new administration. According to the reports, more than 500 migrants crossed the English Channel in small boats shortly before his comments. Smugglers allegedly launched several vessels from points along the French and Belgian coasts, again demonstrating how difficult the Channel route has been so successful for British government to control. The timing matters. Burnham has only recently taken office, yet he has inherited one of the most divisive political challenges in Britain. Channel crossings, asylum applications, accommodation costs, and the use of hotels to house migrants have become major source of public anger. Opposition parties are likely to use every new arrival to test whether the new Prime Minister has a credible plan or is merely continuing the policies of the previous government. During Burnham's opening week, hundreds of people reportedly crossed the channel on successive days. These figures may fluctuate depending on weather conditions, enforcement activity, and smuggling operations, but politically, each boat carries consequences far beyond the number of passengers. Images of crowded vessels arriving in British waters have become symbol used by critics to argue that the government has lost control of the border. Trump's language was characteristically direct. He said migrants were arriving from Africa, South America, and different parts of Asia before claiming that Europe was being invaded. Supporters of stricter immigration controls may view the statement as an honest description of a growing crisis. Critics, however, are likely to argue that the language generalizes migrants from different continents and risks turning a complicated issue into a confrontation between communities. That is the balance Burnham must now navigate. A government can recognize public concern over irregular migration without treating every asylum seeker or foreign national as a threat. Britain is required to enforce its borders, dismantle smuggling networks, and process claims efficiently. At the same time, it has legal and humanitarian responsibilities towards people who may be fleeing war, persecution, or serious danger. The problem is that Britain's asylum system has struggled to satisfy either side of the argument. Those calling for tighter control believe deportation are too slow, enforcement is weak, and smugglers operate with little fear. Human rights groups argue that safe legal routes remain inadequate and that harsh policies often punish desperate people without dismantling the criminal organization that profits from their journeys. Burnham's government is also under pressure over asylum hotels. When Downing Street was asked whether the new Prime Minister wanted the hotels closed, a spokesperson said work on the issue was continuing under the Home Secretary. That response may be administratively accurate, but politically, it leaves room for critics to claim that the government has not yet presented a clear departure from the previous administration. Trump's comments were not limited to migration. He has also encouraged Burnham to expand oil and gas drilling in the North Sea, arguing that Britain could transform its economic fortunes by exploiting more of its energy resources. Burnham has not publicly committed to the sweeping expansion Trump appears to favor, although its government has maintained the Labour position of allowing production in areas already covered by existing license. The disagreement over energy could become another test of the relationship. Trump favors aggressive fossil fuel production and regularly links domestic drilling to national wealth and energy independence. Burnham, by contrast, must balance energy security, climate commitments, investment, employment, and pressure from environmental groups inside Britain. Despite these possible tensions, relations between the two leaders appear to have started on a relatively stable footing. The UK government confirmed that Burnham and Trump spoke shortly after the British Prime Minister took office. Burnham has already said he would defend the Britain's national interest and challenge the American president where necessary, suggesting that cooperation will not mean automatic agreements. Trump described the initial telephone conversation as interesting and successful and publicly wished Burnham good luck. But his migration warning showed the American president is also willing to place public pressure on the new British leader. This creates an unusual situation in which a foreign president is openly telling a British prime minister which domestic issue requires urgent attention. Supporters of Trump may argue that immigration affects not only Britain, but the wider Western alliance. They believe uncontrolled borders can increase pressure on housing, public service, policing, and social cohesion. From that perspective, Trump's intervention reflects a concern shared by voters across Europe and the United States. The counter-argument is that Britain's migration policy should be decided by its elected governments rather than shaped by public instructions from Washington. Opponents may also question whether Trump's rhetoric offers practical solutions to the Channel crisis. Stopping small boats requires cooperation with France and Belgium, intelligence operations against smugglers, faster decision on asylum cases, and workable agreement for returning people whose claims are rejected. Burnham now faces a difficult political choice. Ignoring Trump's warning could allow opponents to portray him as unwilling to confront illegal migration. Fully adopting Trump's rhetoric could alienate sections of his own Labour Party and undermine his attempt to present a different style of leadership. His challenge will there demonstrate control without abandoning fairness and firmness, without allowing fear to dominate the national conversation. The bigger question is that migration may become the first defining test of the Burnham government. The new Prime Minister entered office promising change, but Channel crossings will quickly reveal whether that change includes a new border strategy or simply a change of leadership. Trump has now ensured that Britain's response will be watched closely not only by British voters, but also by allies, opponents, and governments across Europe. For Burnham, the honeymoon period may already be ending. The boats are still crossing. The asylum system remains under pressure, and the President of the United States had publicly challenged him to act. What he does next could shape both his relationship with Washington and the public's early judgment of his government. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you find this report informative, please like this video and subscribe to our channel so you never miss our latest updates in Nigeria and worldwide. I'm Chimezrim Okoro, and I will see you soon.